be wiser as an educated advisor. Hello everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money color commentator. On today's show, why long-term relationships are key to profitability. Part 1 in our series on the 12-step process to building long-term relationships with Bob Lochard, Chief Marketing Officer of Gordon Marketing. So let's get down to business. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Hey, good morning, Steve.
Bob, when I'm looking at relationships, what we're going to talk about this whole series seems so basic. It seems so elementary, and yet this is the area where we make mistakes.
True.
So whether we have a relationship with our consumer, you have a relationship with your downline, whether you're an agency or maybe even an independent marketing organization, we all have relationships. You're married, I'm married, I have relationships with my wife, I have relationships with my kids, my grandkids. There's places in our thinking where we have to come to a place, if we're going to build an agency, if we're going to build relationships, we're going to build our business, we have to kind of become relational. And when people are, this is probably going to play sometime around Valentine's Day. When we play this kind of episode and series, people are kind of always saying to me, hey, Steve, it seems so basic, but yet when you did it, it sounded like I don't know what I'm talking about. When you talk about building long-term relationships, it doesn't just happen. How do you begin doing this? If you're not really used to agency building or building out your business, how do you start?
Well, it's a good question. First, I would start with a little bit of background for myself, which is really where I learned that. I've only had 3 careers in my life. I was in the military for a spell, law enforcement, and I was paralyzed in 1986, and so my career took a back seat for 2 years. Came out of that 2-year spell, and obviously for 2 years not working, finding a job very difficult, and I ended up in the insurance world. And over the next few years, I grew with the industry, loved the industry, still love the industry, and was promoted. It eventually moved into the home office of a leading national carrier. And I had been promoted. So in my opinion, young, I had arrived, and I didn't need anybody any longer. And so I went about my job of I'm going to be the leader, I'm the boss, you need to respect me, I get to make all the decisions. And that didn't work. Work real well. And over the next 2 years, I took what had been very successful to leaning towards not being, let's say, successful any longer. And I learned that we need people. And you don't get respect from titles. You don't gain relationships because someone promotes you. I'll celebrate my 40th anniversary with my wife on the 16th of February. And it wasn't always easy, and it took a lot of work, and it takes work every day. And building long-term business relationships, it takes work. It takes recognition. I can't be the center of their life. And matter of fact, I need to take a back seat and take a dedicated time to concentrate on what can I do to make the relationship better.
You talk about, and this is part of your writing and some of the things you've spoken about in the public domain before, you talk about knowing your target market. I mean, I have to qualify who I'm talking to. I have to know my audience.
Right.
Sometimes I think some of our advisors, some of our agents, we're too broad in our approach. It's catching everybody. How can I kind of narrow that down and get a good target market so I'm spending my marketing dollars wisely and I'm actually communicating with the right language to the right people?
Yeah, sometimes we try to be all things to all people, and simply put, it's too expensive to be all things to all people. Start off with what you're best at. I say target market, we birds of a feather flock together. We know where we're strong, we know where we can be most profitable, and I could try to reach out to every market in the insurance industry, and in doing so, I'll just fail. So I'm going to focus in on what makes me happy? What drives me? What excites me? You and I wouldn't agree on everything, and it's okay to learn to agree to disagree. But I'm going to start with that market. Where can I be most profitable in the long run? And to be profitable in the long run, I need long-term relationships. People that are like-minded. We think somewhat the same way. We all have different tracks. We all have different skill sets. We all have things that we just don't like, and that's okay. That's what makes us strong. So when I say, that target market, I'm thinking more of the characteristics, the personalities, and the background. It's important to learn those up front, what drives them, their behavior, what do they like, what do they dislike. And then I look at the market segment itself. Where am I most profitable? So I'm going to look for the people in that marketplace that fit what fits well with my company, and then match up the product to that individual.
Now, you talk about this striking a balance between givers and takers. There's a lot of takers in the financial services business who are there to take your knowledge, your time, your treasure, and then a lot of times I'd like to just dump them, right? Just get them out of my life.
Absolutely.
But it's hard.
It is.
How do I strike a balance on that?
Well, and I say that because we study psychology and the psychology of the cell and all of these things. The type A personalities, I am one. And I say top salespeople are usually type A, ADHD, HDD, and if there's any other Ds, we probably have it. It's what makes us successful if you learn how to captivate that. But there's really only two types of people in the world, in my opinion. There are givers and takers. And if I surround myself by those that are takers, I only have so much energy. I only have so much of myself on a daily basis that I can give. And to build that relationship, I need to be able to give in that relationship. If I surround myself with takers, and there's a lot of other adjectives we could throw out then it's going to drain me. It's going to take away from what makes me who I am and gives me the ability to build on that relationship.
I'm thinking about when we're looking at people and trying to have a communication and a relationship with them, learn how to do it. There's some consistency and activity. We're going to be making calls. Follow up is huge in our business. When I'm looking to put in essential building blocks, let's say I don't have the skill sets. Let's say I'm not used to having a downline. How can I build this kind of consistent activity that has a discipline to it? Now, you're from the military, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I'm sure some of your military service, some of your time of being a police officer, there's disciplines involved here. There's habits, there's routines. Are those finding their way into this business?
They always have. You have to start with, one of my favorite videos is of an admiral. He was a Navy SEAL who said, get up in the morning and make your bed. Start off the day with a victory. And so there are disciplines you have to put in place. How many people am I going to call? What's going to be a victory today? Early on in my career, I was taught to see 15 people a day in the sales world. Didn't mean I sold 15 a day, but my discipline was my day was not over until I saw that particular number. If I saw that number and I didn't make a sell and I did everything right, then I could celebrate a victory. I had a victory. If I know my numbers and if I know my metrics and if I know what's going to and believe it's going to make me successful, then in the end of the day, by following those disciplines, I will be a success.
So when I'm looking at, when we're talking about our 12-step program, you're talking about, when we're going to introduce it in sections 2, 3, 4, and 5, we're talking about employing some of these ideas that bring consistency to the relationship, and then that develops over the time, I'm sure, a degree of trust. When you think about, how long have you been in the business now, the financial services?
28 years.
Okay, in 28 years, have you seen you've had to modify your approach? You said at the beginning you needed other people. Okay, and I think we all know that. But if I'm going to stay in this business for any length of time and I want it to be profitable, I'm going to have to make some choices on who I'm going to play with and who I'm not.
Absolutely. I like to joke and say we have to be cautious of who we get in bed with. Again, it's cherishing those relationships, protecting those relationships. I have many, many long-term relationships. I used to be guilty of saying, well, I have a friend over here and I have a friend over here. Well, to me, we were friends, but in actuality, we had business relationships. We respected one another. Sometimes we'd go a couple years without really having a conversation. But you have to protect those relationships as well. So who I run with or who am I pair myself up with, if I'm not cautious, can have a detrimental effect on those other business relationships. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Well, listen, don't forget to watch our next segment on our steps 1, 2, and 3, part 2 of our series on the 12-step process in building long-term relationships. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, compliance officer, and maybe in this show, our psychiatrist. And don't forget to subscribe to my consumer show, Steve Savant's Money, the Name of the Game, daily content you can post on your website, social media accounts, and database distribution. I'm Steve Savant. Thanks for watching.